United States Marines that have been deployed to Los Angeles have just detained a United States citizen. The United States Marines, which cannot operate against American citizens, have just detained an American citizen on American soil. Reported by Reuters, here is a picture of the person that was detained by the U.S. Marines outside of the Wilshire Federal Building today. The Post-Comatose Act restricts the U.S. military's role of law enforcement domestically in the United States against United States citizens. The only time that this should be happening is if the President of the United States invokes the Insurrection Act, which he can't do because there's no insurrection happening in Los Angeles. So we have the U.S. military, which is prohibited from acting on American soil against American citizens, detaining American citizens at the behest of the President, who sent 4,000 National Guard troops, who mobilized 700 U.S. Marines, sent in 200 U.S. Marines against the wishes of the governor, against the wishes of the mayor.
Have y'all seen the first United States citizens that the United States Marines have detained? If not, go check out Aaron Parnas' latest video. Go check out that video and then come back. In my opinion, I feel like that is sending a message to a particular ethnicity of people without saying one word.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about more liberals being upset with the military presence in Los Angeles due to the fact that President Trump is trying to restore law and order to these sanctuary cities, and he's trying to protect federal officers as they do their jobs, right, and deport the illegal immigrants. Now, last night we talked about a ruling from a liberal judge, an activist judge, that basically tried to hand back control of the National Guard to Gavin Newsom and the Democrats. And just a few hours after that ruling, the appeals court has now temporarily lifted the judge's block on the National Guard being handed back over to the Democrats, okay? And we got to talk about it because the Marines and the National Guard, they're still in L.A. In preparation for so-called No King's Day. And liberals are upset, right? Boo-hoo, whining, crying about the Marines doing their job, okay? So without further ado, I want to go ahead and talk about the appeals court, at least temporarily, siding with the Trump administration, allowing President Trump to retain control over the National Guard.
California National Guard staying under the Trump administration's control, at least through this weekend. A late-night order paused a ruling that found the federal deployment illegal. So right now, 4,000 National Guard members and soon hundreds of Marines will be on the ground with law enforcement dealing with those anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles. That's where we find News Nation's Allie Bradley this morning. Allie, what does this ruling mean for those immigration raids in L.A., and what are you seeing at this hour?
Yeah, hey, Marky. So, of course, with these raids that are happening across the Los Angeles area, they're hoping that when they maintain the control of how the California National Guard is used, that things will remain mostly peaceful out here, and it will allow, kind of as a force multiplier, agents and officers to be out conducting those enforcement operations versus, dealing with the public. So when it comes to the National Guard, the president was given that victory kind of late last night where he'll be able to maintain the control of those soldiers, those guys that are standing back there. Those are California National Guard. They will remain under the president's control, if you will, until at least early next week. So this ruling came down pretty late, but the president posting early this morning to social media saying, quote, the appeals court ruled last night that I can use the National Guard to keep our cities, in this case Los Angeles, safe. If I didn't send the military into Los Angeles, that city would be burning to the ground right now. We saved L.A. Thank you for this decision.
Yeah, I got to say the president is 100% right about this, right? I think the military being there, despite what the Democrats are boo-hoo-whining and crying about, I think has made it so there's more peace, right? Because earlier this week, it looked like this would never stop. Things have definitely calmed down, okay, in L.A., even though we are seeing some protests and riots across the country. And again, who knows what we're going to see tomorrow, okay, on so-called No King's Day. I'm just saying that we definitely need the military. We need the National Guard in these liberal cities for so-called No King's Day. We definitely need them there, right, for sure.
Now, the appeals court order came not long after a district court did rule in favor of California Governor Gavin Newsom for Trump to relinquish control of the state's troops. Remember, they didn't think that that was warranted, that the kind of violence that we saw breaking out warranted the deployment of these troops. And while Newsom's victory was short-lived, our crews were there for a brief moment of celebration for some protesters. Take a listen.
That makes me feel great, but it also, I'm a little bit apprehensive because things like this have happened where judges rule in favor of things that should happen and we don't see any action from it.
Wow, what is this? Seriously, what is wrong with these people? Right? What is wrong with these people? They just look ridiculous. They look so ridiculous. I don't know what's up with liberals in masks, right? Which, by the way, the irony is that these people, they love wearing masks. And they promote mask wearing, except when ICE wears masks, right? When they wear masks, all of a sudden that's bad, right? But you know, they wear masks to commit crimes and to engage in domestic terrorism, and that's good, right? That's good. Wearing a mask for law enforcement is bad. Wearing masks for terrorism is good, according to these people. Again, this is ridiculous.
From it.
And last night in downtown LA, a protester was dramatically apprehended amid what was otherwise a pretty peaceful and quiet night. Flashbangs were deployed. You saw officers rush in. You see the soldiers there apprehending that individual who was apparently tackled to the ground at one point. And many with the federal agencies down here, including Border Patrol, they agree with that late night ruling. They say they're welcoming what they call a force multiplier with the National Guard so that they can conduct these operations and go after who they call the worst of the worst. And we were there exclusively as agents conducted immigration enforcement operations. This was in El Monte, California, in LA County, where 6 individuals were arrested that Border Patrol says are here illegally. Now they're going to be processed. They will determine if they have some criminal history outside of just being here illegally, Marky. And then, of course, they face removal under this administration. Now, this all comes as we were there, and then when we deployed back to the base, a team stayed behind, and they were actually reportedly assaulted, Marky, and that comes as DHS says before these protests, those assaults were up 413% against agents and officers, so something to watch there.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. A temporary victory, at least for right now, for the administration. Again, I think that the military is definitely going to be needed tomorrow, especially, you know, as President Trump is celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States Army. Okay, leftists are freaking out about a military parade. I'm like, well, what's wrong with celebrating the military? What's wrong with showing strength, right? I don't know what it is about our modern day politics, our society, where people don't like the United States of America showing strength. Yes, we should definitely show how strong we are, right? Yes, we should celebrate our military. Yes, we should not be ashamed of being a strong country. I don't understand it. I don't get it, right? Where does our society become so weak? I don't get it. I don't understand that. So anyways, with that being said, leftists are freaking out about a non-story, right? Involving the Marines, who again are still there in LA because of the fact that the appeals court lifted this judge's block, okay? And they ended up temporarily detaining a man while guarding a federal building. And I want to go ahead and play the video clip of this guy being detained and what happened in the leftist response.
Check in with the military won't follow an unlawful order ever, and if they do, there'd be consequences, folks. Where are those folks at? How are y'all feeling about this right now? This is a picture of the first American citizen temporarily detained by Marines. I know General Sherman is saying that these temporary detainments are lawful because supposedly this person was threatening an armed officer or a Marine, who fucking knows? And who even knows if that's the truth? They can say whatever the hell they want, right? So what the hell is the posse comitatus going to do for us ever? And the moment that they cross that line, the Trump administration is just going to invoke the Insurrection Act, right? Because that's the final loophole for the whole thing. If all these other fail-safes don't work for them, they can just go for the Hail Mary. So let's talk again about the military not ever following unlawful orders.
Donald Trump's Marines were just caught making their first detainment of a civilian at one of the protests in Los Angeles. So here is a photo obtained by Reuters that shows an active duty squad of Marines detaining an American civilian. Now, this is a historic moment, or an historic moment. Who gives a crap about the grammar? This is a historic moment we are seeing, and not the good kind. This is the American military, whose salaries we fund with our tax dollars, carrying out an arrest of a civilian at a protest in a state where they should never have been deployed in the first place. And what this really is the military being weaponized by an authoritarian, fascist, felon president against his own citizens for protesting his cruel and inhumane immigration policies. This photo is symbolic of the Trump presidency, and it doesn't look like America, does it? No, it looks more like North Korea or Russia, both of which are not democracies.
We have breaking news right now. United States Marines have officially made their first detainment of a United States American civilian and American citizens. The United States Marines have just detained a United States citizen on American soil, according to Reuters. This is bombshell, explosive reporting right now. This is an image of an American citizen being detained temporarily by United States Marines on United States soil. This is an image from Reuters. This reporting is from Reuters. I'm giving them 110% credit because this is a major story. And here we are. Here we are in the United States of America, where the United States military is now detaining civilians on the ground in California. Now, here's the thing. The United States military is not allowed to conduct law enforcement activities. They say they may temporarily detain individuals for a period of time if they threaten the Marines, but they are not allowed to arrest them. So this potentially violates the law.
We have some major breaking news. Marines in Los Angeles just detained an American citizen. A reporter from Reuters just confirmed, quote, U.S. Marines deployed to Los Angeles carried out the first known detention of a civilian. The U.S. military confirms after being shown a Reuters image that they took. And here is that image. What you are looking at right now is an American citizen being detained on American soil by American Marines. Now, as many of you know, the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 prohibits the U.S. military from enforcing domestic laws without congressional authorization. So what you're looking at in this photo from Reuters could also be a violation of the law here in the United States. Surprise, Trump possibly breaking another law. I can't begin to stress the significance of this image. It's just something that I don't think any American really thought they'd ever see, which is an American citizen being detained by American Marines on American soil. Trump's dictatorial tirade continues, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so as per the usual, leftists are exaggerating and fear-mongering about what actually happened, okay? Because they make it sound like the Marines detained a protester, right? Because they were protesting against the mass deportations, but that's actually not what happened. So let's read about what happened, because when you learn about what actually happened, you're going to find out very quickly that this was a nothing burger. And again, they're exaggerating and they're lying for clicks, right? Because they have nothing, right? They're desperate, okay? That's exactly what's going on here. So let's read. Shortly after they began guarding a Los Angeles federal building Friday, U.S. Marines detained a man who had walked onto the property and did not immediately hear their commands to stop. The brief detention marked the first time federal troops have detained a citizen since they were deployed to the nation's second largest city by President Donald Trump in response to protests over the administration's immigration arrest. The Marines were activated earlier this week, but began their duties Friday. The man, Marcos Liano, was later released without charges and said the Marines were just doing their jobs. A U.S. Army North spokesperson said the troops have the authority to temporarily detain people under specific circumstances. He said those detained and when the person can be transferred to, quote, appropriate civilian law enforcement personnel. Liano's detention shows how the troops' deployment is putting them closer to carrying out law enforcement actions. Already, National Guard soldiers have been providing security on raids as Trump has promised as part of his immigration crackdown. Liano, a former Army combat engineer, said he was rushing to get to a Veteran Affairs appointment when he stepped past a piece of caution tape outside the federal building. He looked up to find a Marine sprinting toward him. Quote, I had my headphones in, so I didn't hear them, Liano said. They told me to get on the ground. I basically complied with everything they were saying. Liano was placed in zip ties and was held for more than 2 hours by the Marines and members of the National Guard. He said after Los Angeles police arrived, he was released without charges. He said a spokesperson for the Los Angeles Police Department said they responded to a call at the scene but weren't needed and no charges were filed. Quote, I didn't know it was going to be this intense here, he said later. A U.S. official told the AP that a civilian had stepped over the line. He was warned they would take him down, and they did, according to the official who requested anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the matter. About 200 Marines out of the 700 deployed arrived in the city Friday, joining 2,000 members of the National Guard that have been stationed outside federal buildings this week in Los Angeles. Another 2,000 Guard members were notified of deployments earlier this week. Yeah, so what happened here? Well, basically, this man went past an area that he wasn't supposed to go past, and the Marines did their job, right? They stopped him. And they detained him for a couple hours until law enforcement got there. Now, the man made a mistake, but he wasn't killed. He wasn't roughed up. He wasn't hurt in any way, right? He wasn't shot, right? None of these things happened at all. And the Marines did their job. That's it, right? That's it. And they let him go. But again, according to leftists, this is so terrible. Fascism, right? This is what they're claiming, okay? This is like the Soviet Union, North Korea. Again, it's just so funny to me how they're so desperate that they will take a story like this that is a complete and total nothing burger, and they'll try to blow it up into something that it isn't. They claim it's illegal. It's not illegal. The Marines were doing their job. They have the right to detain people under certain circumstances. In that circumstance, that guy crossed the line unknowingly, mistakenly, didn't know. The Marines stopped him, made sure that he wasn't a threat, handed over to local law enforcement, and they kept it moving. Not a big deal, right? Not a big deal at all. But again, this is what you do when you're desperate. When you don't have anything, when you're losing the narrative, right? You just make stuff up, okay? You just cry about nothing, right? And that's what we're seeing here from these leftists. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.